All right. So does anyone want to share anything about your programs? Any end of year updates?
I'll start. So I used the video from, I've really enjoyed these calls. I've learned a lot. They're kind of like a good resource for me.
Oh, good.
So I training through them and spent some time putting together visualizations from the past year
Mm-hmm.
and have been sharing the folks that I work with. And we're working on an annual report and
Nice.
going to have we were trying to get a call in this month with our volunteers, but I think we're going to put it off till January just to see, let them know how they did and see how many of them want to come back for work with us next year. And so, yeah,
That
it
sounds
was
awesome.
successful. We were very happy.
Good. Yeah, I'm so glad you're able to use the visualizations too to
Mhm.
share about your program. That's awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard once you get into it, and yeah, it was pretty straightforward.
Great.
And I'm just trying to get in the hang of making these check-in calls. Our program is still in its infancy. We haven't lifted it up off the ground yet. We're hoping to in 2022. So this is just good practice on my part.
Cool. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. And yesterday we talked a little bit about ideas to try to get more people to come to these calls. Because I feel like it's been great to have the participation from people that have been in some of the more recent courses, the LPL certification classes, some of the newer folks, but we don't have a lot of the people that have been doing this for, a decade that come to the calls anymore. So I want to try to figure out ways to get them back and get them engaged because they have so much experience and wisdom to share from their program. So we have some ideas in the works for ways to kind of like re-engage with those folks. So we're hoping to get that started next year. So the thing that I wanted to share today is this information about, or a brainstorm, I guess, of things that you can do at the end of the year to kind of make sure that your program's running smoothly. So we can go through some of these things, and Nan was actually just mentioning one of them, which is doing a check-in with your observers. I think it's good to probably do this more than just once a year, but I think, if you can kind of schedule in some sort of a check-in, at least at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, to just make sure that everything is going well with, and maybe sit down with each observer if you can, or just make sure that people have that space to share back with you. Because I think, especially if you've been doing your program for a while, or even if you have a new program, people can, maybe they figure out, oh, this isn't exactly what I wanted to do, or maybe they get burned out after a couple of years when they've been doing the same thing, and they just want to have the chance to maybe try something different. And so I think it can be a good chance to, especially if you can come up with some different roles, offer them a different way to participate, to still stay engaged, but maybe not keep doing the exact same thing. So some of the things we were talking about yesterday was, maybe if an observer, they want to break from doing just the data collection, you could offer some other ways that they can stay engaged, like taking pictures of plants or animals and helping to create phenoface photo guides or other resources. Or maybe they're trying to help you with like recruitment, get some new people interested, if they're like active on social media, or they like, involved in other volunteer groups. You could ask them to be kind of like a ambassador for the program and reach out and try to get some more people interested. Or maybe the person's interested in giving a presentation, maybe like to the public about what you guys have been doing in your program, or just sharing back maybe in like an article. Doesn't have to be anything super big, but even like on social media, or maybe in a local paper or something, and trying to just like share back some of what you're doing. We had There's a group in Albuquerque that has been observing for many years now, and they're part of it's like a botanical garden that's part of a big zoo. And they have a magazine that they release quarterly. And so we submitted something there that kind of described what they've been working on the last few years and some of what we've learned with their observations. So something like that could be a way that one of your volunteers can kind of help with that. And then another idea was leading phenology walks. So maybe not exactly involving data collection, but just taking the public around and kind of describing your program. It could be a way to engage new people as well, and just kind of share back and do some outreach about your phenology program. And then I really like the idea of doing some sort of acknowledgement of all of your observers' efforts. So there's one of our campaigns called Pesky Plant Trackers. There's a coordinator for that program in Minnesota, which is where the researchers who inspired that campaign are based at the University of Minnesota. And that coordinator, Abby Anderson, does a really wonderful job of just really acknowledging all of their observers. And so she just hosted a gratitude party last month. And the idea with that was it was a way to kind of give everyone the chance to get together. Maybe they could like meet other observers who they'd never met before. And this was it was online on a Zoom meeting. And then she had some kind of acknowledgements for certain observers who have done a lot of observations. And then it was just a chance to kind of share stories from the observers over the year. And then they also had some researchers come and give really short presentations on ways that they're using the data. So I think all that's a really nice way to just kind of like cap off a year and then give your observers a chance to kind of feel like that they've done a lot of work and you really appreciate it. So I don't know, do you guys have any other things like that, things you've done, social kind of activities for your observers or just volunteers in general?
We're so new to it that we haven't started anything like that, but it's definitely something that Chris and I have been talking about needing to do.
Yeah, and you said you're going to be doing some sort of an event coming up.
Yes, a virtual kind of check-in overview of what we did last season and looking ahead to next season.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to do. Yeah, and I don't know if not necessarily with Nature's Notebook, but if you have any other experience to share from other programs you've been involved with and like things that have stood out to you as like a nice way to kind of acknowledge volunteers for any sort of an effort.
Well, when I used to work at a museum, and I was working with the volunteers as a scientist there, we would take them on trips and do educational opportunities. So I was thinking about that, like, maybe offering regular informational PowerPoints and with local folks and maybe doing some field trips to other areas nearby with.
Yeah, I know that Gail Bishop, who's the coordinator for the Gulf Coast Phenology Trail, she's done a field trip for her observers in the past, and I think they like had a boat trip and they had a great time and they learned about some of the species that they're already tracking, but it was just kind of a chance for everyone to get together and enjoy being outdoors and looking at plants and animals.
This is a much smaller scale, but we have a lean, mean volunteer group in Vermont, spread across the state, and we keep up with them with a quarterly newsletter that's sort of tailored to the interests of the group, as well as trying to do little workshops. And the last couple of years it's been virtual, where it's sort of like open hours, a little bit modeled after the work that Abby's doing. And we always try at the end of the year when we do our end of year or sort of winter newsletter, we try to call out the good work of our volunteers by name and sort of give some limelight to the various projects they're doing. But so I'm within Forest Parks and Recreation, and it's a little weird because we're the scientists and we're directly doing the coordinating with the volunteers as opposed to like having a volunteer coordinator. And so we also have like end of year publications that highlight the goings on about the health of Vermont forests. And I always like to include in those publications the work of volunteers.
That's awesome. Yeah, those are great chances to share. And then you can share those with your observers.
Yep. Yeah. And then they get to see their name in a couple of different things that are getting published.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I like that idea of having those like office hours or a chance for people to just come and ask questions. Yeah, I don't know if I know Abby has a lot of people that come to those, and she really gains a lot from those sessions herself, just like hearing about what are problem points for people and like tricky things about the questions on the data sheets, and then she'll use what she learns in those office hours to put more information in her newsletters. But do you have a lot of people that come to the office hours?
No, we just started implementing it this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think it's just going to take a little more pushing on our part and generating awareness and getting people interested in taking part in it.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all great ideas. So another thing that I think is good to do at least once a year is to do a quality check of the data. And so if you're already doing an annual report, that's a really good time to kind of do this at the same time. But really, we at the NPN, we don't really do the quality checking of the data. We have the data collection platform available. We have some flagging in the data set that we do that's automated, but really we're relying on either the people that are using the data or the people that are collecting the data to be doing those kind of quality checks. And so I think it's good to first, kind of tell your observers that it's something that we're hoping that they're doing is, keeping track of what they're reporting and even looking back at the information that they've submitted every so often to just make sure that there's nothing that's like obviously wrong. But it's also something you could do as a local phenology leader is like look over the data that your observers have collected and just make sure that there's nothing that's like obviously really incorrect. And it's tricky to know, exactly what's wrong if there's something wrong, because there is really wacky phenology that happens in some years. And so you might have a plant that's flowering at a time that you wouldn't really expect. So you can always check in, with your observers and encourage them, if they do see something that is really out of season, maybe even to like take a picture of it and or have someone else look, just so you can kind of verify that that is definitely what's happening. But I did want to go and just kind of show you a couple ways that you can use the visualization tools to kind of see the data that you've collected and pick out anything that might be a little bit off. So the first way that we have for observers to kind of quality check their own data is on the observation deck. And we've done webinars about this in the past that are on the YouTube channel if you want in depth on the phenology calendar. But this phenology calendar that's on the observation deck, this shows you either the data that you have recorded yourself, or you can also look at the data from any Nature's Notebook local phenology program that you're part of. But it shows you up to 3 different combinations of sites and species and phenophases in this year and then the previous year. And we really intended this to be like a quick way to see if there might be anything that's like out of order kind of here. So there's nothing that really looks super unusual here, but if there was a yes report for leaves in January here for milkweed or monarchs or something like that, then you could see that on here and you could pretty quickly identify, okay, this was an error that I probably made. I'm going to go in and edit that data. And then the other way you can use this calendar is to kind of anticipate when something might be happening. So if we were looking at this calendar in, let's say, March of this year, we would see like, oh, last year we started reporting milkweeds in June. So let's make sure that we get people to start paying attention maybe in May to make sure that we capture that onset. And so you can adjust what you see here. It'll by default show you, I think it's the top 3 things that you have observed in terms of the number of observations, but you can choose what you see here if you want. So that's one tool to just kind of tell your observers about if they want to just use that to kind of keep track of what they have recorded. And then the other tool we have is the link down here on the bottom right of the observation deck. And that goes into the main visualization tool that we have, where you can actually see all of the observations from all observers. But once you select a type of visualization, you'll see that because I came here from my observation deck, my user ID is already here. And so what I'm going to look at is just the data that I've reported, either to my own personal sites or to the group sites that I observe at. So that's another way where you could use any of these kind of visualizations that we have to pick out, and look at the different species that you're observing and make sure that everything kind of looks like it should. There's not anything that's really obviously something that was misreported. Looks like there's something in the chat. Okay, you do quality checks. Cool, yeah, doing it once a month is awesome if you could do that, because the sooner you can find a potential error, it's more likely that the person that made it is going to remember. If you, in December say like, oh, you reported this funny thing back in February, it might be hard for the person to recall exactly what happened and whether that was actually something that happened or not. So yeah, doing it more often is definitely better if you can. Yes. So if you do see something that is incorrect, what can you do then? So one option is if the person who made the observation sees that it's something that's wrong, they could just go in, to this enter observation data page and then correct the observation, resubmit, and that'll correct the data in the database. And it's really easy to edit basically anything except for the date. So if you are going to edit your data, you'll be able to see all of your past observations in here. It's a little confusing. If you enter data on the app, it's like a little bit confusing the way it shows up. It's basically one phenophase for one plant in one column, and then the next one will be in the next column. So it just takes a lot of scrolling to look at all of it. But if you knew that you reported something that was an error in March, you could just scroll back in time until you got to March, and then you could fix that. But if you are someone who is a leader of your program and you see that there's an error in the data set, you first have to figure out who made the observation. And so to do that, I would say the first thing you would want to do is, so you'll be able to know from looking at the visualization tool which year and species and phenophase it was that was potentially incorrect that you want to fix. And so you want to download a data file so that you can see who was the person that submitted that observation. So if you found this in the Viz tool, you can do this export visualization data. This will be live once you load up you have to first follow the steps of putting on a year and the species and all that. But once you do that, you'll be able to export the data. So that would be probably the quickest way to get to that data file. But you can also download all of your group data from this manage users page. And so you would download a data file here. You can also do it through our phenology observation portal, but you just want to get to the point where you can find that record that you're looking for by looking for the year, the species, and the phenophase. And then once you have the observer ID, then you can map it to the person by looking on the manage users page here. So if you only have a few observers, you can just kind of go through here and click on the name and then find their observer ID and match it up to the observation you're looking for. Or you can download a raster and that will give you like a full list. If you have a lot of observers, this is a quicker way to do it. And then you can look for that observer ID and find their email. And then you can either ask them to fix it if you feel comfortable that, you know, they remember what happened and like, yeah, they agree that was not correct. Or if you just want to correct the observation yourself, you can do that. Actually, I need to show you one more thing on here first though. So in order to correct someone else's observation in the group, you have to be a data entry technician. So for example, there are people in here in this group who are group admins and then also data entry technicians. If you have this data entry technician checked, then you'll be able to go in and either enter data on behalf of someone else or edit their data. So if you have that capability, then you'll be able to go to this enter observation data, the place where you edit your observations. And there'll be this extra line right here that says select the user that entered the data. If I wasn't a data entry technician, I wouldn't see this, but I am a data entry technician, so I could go in and I could enter data on behalf of someone else, and I can also edit their data. So this would be where you would correct that observation if you were doing it for your observer. And then you do the same thing where you would just correct it. Maybe it was like changing it from yes to no, and then submit either at the top of the page or down at the bottom. So any questions about that?
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I know that was kind of a lot of steps, and I was talking yesterday with the group about like, would you be able to do that now, like to replicate that, or would you need to, and you could always watch this video, but would you rather have like a step-by-step document or like a short video that shows you that? Or what, how do you feel about like your ability to do that yourself?
I think I'd be able to do it. If I had any questions, I'd just come back and watch this, the video of this presentation.
Okay. A step-by-step. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I think that's something we'll consider, because yeah, yesterday people said they wanted both the document, the step-by-step document, and a video would be helpful. So we will probably do that at some point. Cool. Any other questions or anything about that? So another thing that you can do, Dan mentioned this as well, is create an annual report for your program. And really this, it doesn't have to be any sort of template or format. It can be whatever serves your own purposes. We do recommend, you know, we have this whole program planning guidance where we recommend that you create some sort of a kind of a question that you have that you're asking of phenology, or something that kind of drives the objectives of your program. So if you have those questions, then it makes it pretty easy to do your report, because you're trying to kind of evaluate what's your progress towards answering the questions that you have. And you can put a lot of other information in the report as well. We have on our, it's actually on the Nature's, or on the USA-NPN side of the website, on our reports page. I think it's linked from a couple places on the Nature's Notebook website too. But down here in the education and engagement series, we have a guidance document on how to make a report, which is just one way that you can do it. You can take whatever's helpful from this. But this kind of walks through, like, you know, the different components that you can include. And then it also goes through where to find all of the things that we think could be part of your report. So it'll describe where the different components live So like this one will tell you, we have the dashboard for local phenology programs that have information about your observation quantity and your observers. So you can use that to pull different graphics that you can download. And I think we did another one of these calls that was focused just on annual reports. So you could watch that for more details. But we do have that guidance available. And then there's some examples out there too that we have on the website that kind of serve as different, just different ways that people have done it. But we're definitely looking for more examples. And I know there are a lot of people that make reports and we haven't seen them. So I'm going to try to do a call out on the listserv in the next couple weeks, asking for people that have made reports that can share them. And then we need to find a better place on the website to post them. That's a little bit more easy to find. But there's a lot of good things about doing reports, in addition to just figuring out where you're at in answering the questions that you have. You can maybe figure out if you need to make any adjustments. It's just a good time to evaluate and see, do you need a different number of sites or plants to answer the questions that you have? Are there like just certain things about the way that you have your observer scheduled that's not working out? So you can make those kind of changes that you need. Any thoughts on annual reports? What are you guys planning on putting in yours, Nan?
Well, I did work on some of the visualizations, and I think for Chris and I, the person with the Park Service that I work with, just the guide for making it, it was good for us to look at some of the big questions. And so I think that's what we're going to work on over the off season is, we try to flesh out a little bit more based on our first year. What are we really looking at, and do we want to tweak things a little bit moving forward? And the questions that that the guide provides are really nice for us to sort of start the process. So that was very helpful.
Oh, good. Yeah, and this also at the beginning here, it lists like all the different potential components, but yeah, you can put in, the activities that you've done to just kind of keep track. Some people will put in like photographs from different events, and then you can pull out kind of lessons learned, and some people put the climate data summaries as well to just kind of remember what was the climate like in that year, and how did it compare to a long-term average. There are some, it looks like the links at the end of this report document. Those are probably pretty old at this point. So we'll work on getting some more recent examples up as well. One of them that I highlighted yesterday was the Gulf Coast Phenology Trail. So this is a kind of a big network of sites along the Gulf Coast, but they have a number of annual reports now. And Gail Bishop has written these up the last couple of years. But these, it's kind of nice because she includes a lot of natural history information about the different plants. So just kind of details that might be of interest or helpful in people making observations, and kind of why they selected these different trees that they're observing. So. Yeah, any other thoughts on annual reports or questions? So you probably already saw that we also send out an annual survey at the end of each year. Did you guys both get that?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. Yeah, so this is just a chance to, I think, did you get it, Elizabeth? I thought I saw something go by.
Yep, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so that's just, we ask you to just give us some feedback on how things went, and for people that submitted data in the last year, they get one survey that asks about kind of participation of different observers and their achievements from the year, and then which of the tools that we have that they used. And then for people that didn't report data, it just asks if there's like anything that's holding them back from proceeding with their program. Is there anything we could do to help and all that? So the other part of that is we also have this Pheno Champion Award. So this is something that local phenology programs that have been active for 2 years can apply for. And the requirements for that are basically filling out the survey and then also doing an impact statement, which is kind of a just condensed form of what happened in the last year and like what you achieved. It's pretty short, and I think just a couple paragraphs, and then some sort of a like photograph or some sort of an event that you had, or a piece of like an advertisement for something, like an event that you had for your program. And then we have a couple different prize options for that. There's a package of swag for your observers with Nature's Notebook logos, or you can select a trail sign. We have our graphic designer that we contract with made a sign that you can customize, and then we print that for you. So that's kind of the incentive to apply for the Pheno Champion Award. But the survey in particular is really helpful for us to know, which of the tools we already have were most useful, and then also what do you need from us for next year. And we really look closely at the feedback from those surveys, and use that to plan what we do in the next year. So really encourage everyone to do those. We ask for them by the end of January, and I'll be sending out a couple of reminders next month for people that haven't completed them yet. So that is my list. I don't know if you guys have other ideas of things that you recommend or that you anticipate doing for your programs. If you don't have other things there, I'm also open to hearing about topics for future calls. We don't really have anything definitely scheduled for next year. So do you guys have anything that you would like us to talk about in a future call?
I guess I'm so new to the process that I still have some of the archived presentations to look at, and I think I'm still learning what I don't know.
Okay.
So
That's fair.
ideas, I'll definitely shoot you an email once I figure
Okay.
out what that I need.
Let's see. Elizabeth said things that seem basic but are good to get regular reminders of how to do. Okay. Yeah, we have our kind of like the main things that people usually ask about, and we've done those a few times. So like the visualization tool and local phenology program dashboard, stuff like that. So yeah, we can definitely run through those things again. All right. Well, that's all I had for today. If you have any other just random questions about anything, I'm happy to answer those or try to answer those. No? All right. Well, we hopefully will have some new ways to engage some of our more experienced local phenology leaders next year. We're going to be working on that. We're also working on a new website that hopefully will be released in the spring or after the spring. And that will have maybe some more opportunities to connect with other programs as well. We're going to have a map that will be a way that you can kind of see where the different programs are across the country. Hopefully that'll be another tool to kind of recruit potential observers that where they're looking for a way to get involved with a group of people and they can see what's near them. And then we're working on some improvements to the way that the Nature's Notebook stuff is set up in terms of the observation deck layout to just make things easier to find, and then all the resources we have for local phenology programs too. So lots of things coming there. We might have one of these monthly calls devoted to getting feedback from you all on what kind of the prototype looks like, just to make sure that it is it all makes sense and all that. So we will look forward to that next year. So thank you so much for coming, and have a great holiday, and I hope to see you in the new year.
Well, thanks, Erin, and thank you so much for these monthly get-togethers. They really help a lot.
Good. Glad.
Yes, thanks so much, Erin.
No problem. Thanks for coming. And take
All right.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy
Take
New
care.
Year. Bye.